Aujourd'hui, je vais parler de a question I saw recently that lays strictly in the grayest of gray areas, and that was, if you're on your way or have already achieved financial independence, how would you answer a question such as this? How much does your house cost? Hey, XenPuck here. Another weekday that feels like a weekend because I barely have any worries in the world. I mean, Mondays feels like Sundays to me mostly, right? Ever since I reduced my working week to 3 days rather than 5. So what problems does one have if they're already retired early, right? That's what led me to today's topic, which is presumably you would have a nice house, right? Or a nicer house than your peers in the neighborhood, because of your excellent financial habits. And if that's the case, how do you answer the neighborly query of, well, how much does your house cost? Now, I want to mention a caveat right off the bat, which is that I'm assuming the person asking you this question isn't a confidant or a bestie of yours, right? More like an acquaintance or a neighbor, right? Have to make this distinction because honestly, I don't think there's a lot of need for alarm or caution when talking to your trusted friends, right? If you still feel like you need to be on your tippy toes around your actual friends, that's a different question. That my suggestion is to just get new or better friends instead, right? So let's go over the opposing sides of views on this seemingly simple question, right? View 1 is just answer honestly and openly, right? Of course, I'm usually a very straightforward person, so what's wrong with simply answering honestly? The pros for this argument is simple, right? You just state the truth, and the additional added benefit is that people will get transparency, which is actually quite lacking in our modern day in American society, especially when it comes to personal finances, right? The cons, of course, are also very apparent if you really think about it, right? Assuming you have a very nice house, because of all the net worth that someone on fire would have, a high cost of housing may bring up other questions that would lead deeper and deeper into your, well, very personal finances, right? Or worse yet, the person who asked you this question, or your neighbors, let's say they don't ask more questions. They just know that you have a lot more equity than they do. What they're going to do is actually just make assumptions about your finances based on your real estate equity, right? That's actually, I think that's like the worst case scenario, right? Because then you've got people who you don't know that well making mental calculations about your well-being. A little dangerous sometimes when you think about it. So obviously, point number 2, right, where the opposing view is on how to answer this question is simply to demur or defer diplomatically, right? I feel like this is actually the general conventional answer for most people, right? By most people here, I'm including regular people who cannot fathom the concept of financial independence, retire early, right? Again, the pro is that the ambiguity, if people don't know how much you spend on your house, that keeps people in line, right? Your shady neighbors or friends of friends certainly won't target your house if they don't know for sure that your financial situation is actually better than theirs, right? I mean, I know in my mind, I'm picturing a stereotype, like a Home Alone type of situation, but honestly, people with the biggest mansions, especially, like a Home Alone mansion, are usually not the actual rich, just the middle class pretending to be rich type of people, right? But the truth remains that by not being explicit about how much money your home equity situations equate to, it does lower the chances of jealousy within your, immediate social circle, right? And obviously on the flip side, that means you lose the chance to subtly educate your peers or neighbors about how they could improve their own financial situation. Simple, right? The pros and cons are just the reverse of answering clearly, honestly, and explicitly. So finally, what's my pick? How would I answer this question? Honestly, I think while I lean towards being more diplomatic purely for reasons of security, especially in my current situation, right? I mean, the so-called financial experts in the media wants Americans to be millionaires by the time that they're like 65 to 70, okay? And that's just not me. I know I'm way ahead of the game, but the reality is most people cannot fathom this style of living, right? So I don't want to be an a-hole about it, so I will not rub it in to other people's faces. The difference here is that I'd happily talk about it in reality within certain contexts. Example, I made my money in New York City and the Bay Area and California, so if I'm hanging out with old coworkers, I have no qualms talking about my actual housing costs because I know it'll be similar to all of their situations as well, right? Now I know even amongst my old corporate friends, most of them are not financially independent, right? But the difference here is that I know the ballpark of what they actually make. So if I can illustrate to them that how I'm doing better financially, and then if they want, I would be happy to give them advice, right? Again, only advice when prompted. Now, compared to my current living situation, right? These days I'm in a boom town in Texas. Here I would put caution as a higher priority, right? So if I was asked how much my house costs currently by a local neighbor, I'd just say, oh, more than I'd like. Because ain't that the truth for pretty much anybody who's ever bought a house ever, right? Now, in conclusion, right, I do think it's actually quite important for society in general to talk more openly about money, right? But that's what the internet is for, right? And why I make this series of fireside chats to begin with, right? Here in the void of the internet, I hope you guys can tell, I'm not looking to rub my situation in to anyone else's faces. Because after all, I know, you know, and I know, there's always someone else that's done better in life, right? My main point for the whole series is simply this, right? Don't you also want to get to at least where I'm at, and I'm a chump, okay? Where you don't have to worry about money to live? Anyway, tell me some stories about your nosy neighbors or people that you've positively influenced, maybe accidentally, right? In the meantime, do subscribe, like, comment, share, or all that jazz, or whatever you want, okay? Cheers. À la prochaine.